We hosted a quiet backyard dinner for my grandparents' anniversary. No music. Just laughter and candles. Halfway through, our neighbor began blasting white noise from a speaker. We knocked. She said, "I don't like being reminded of things I'll never have." Later that night, someone poured oil over our outdoor table. Destroyed it. We checked the fence cam. Her husband. Calm. Unbothered. When we confronted him, he said, "Your happiness feels aggressive." We filed a report. And that's when the officer mentioned, "You're the fourth house on this block to report them in 6 months." We live in Salem, Oregon. Not the fancy part. Just a normal, middle-class neighborhood. Small homes, decent yards, and people who mostly keep to themselves. We've been here for 6 years. Dana and I bought this place right after we got married. We didn't have much, but we made it ours. Painted every room, planted tomatoes, built a fire pit. That backyard was our sanctuary. My grandparents are old school. Married 50 years, never lived outside Oregon. They've seen the world change so much, but they've stayed solid. So when their anniversary came up, Dana said, "Let's do something just for them. Nothing big. Just love." We planned a simple backyard dinner. Long table. White candles. Dana's rosemary chicken. My uncle brought wine. Everyone was laughing. You could hear forks clinking and soft talking, the way you do when people are relaxed. There was no music. Just voices, a few jokes, and the sound of wind in the trees. And then the noise hit. At first, I thought something was wrong with the power lines. It was this low, constant roar, like a jet engine far away, but steady. Not natural. I walked to the edge of the yard. It was coming from Pamela's house. Our next-door neighbor. Let me explain Pamela. She moved in 3 years ago with her husband, Craig. No kids. Didn't talk much. I introduced myself when they moved in. She gave me a fake smile and shut the door before I finished my sentence. Craig never made eye contact. Dana tried again once, bringing over a plate of cookies. Pamela took them without a word and never brought the plate back. After that, we left them alone. So when I realized the noise was coming from their side, I walked over and knocked. I didn't go in angry. I was calm, polite. Told her we were having a quiet dinner for my grandparents' anniversary and asked if she could turn it down. She looked through the screen door. Her face was pale, like she hadn't seen sunlight in weeks. She stared at me like I'd asked to dig up her lawn. Then she said flatly, "I don't like being reminded of things I'll never have." And she closed the door. Just like that. I stood there for a minute, kind of stunned. Then I walked back to the backyard. Everyone was still trying to enjoy themselves, but the mood had cracked. The noise was so loud we couldn't even hear each other talk without raising our voices. My grandmother smiled, bless her, but even she looked a little shaken. We ended the dinner early. That night, after everyone left, and we cleaned up, Dana and I sat in the kitchen in silence. We didn't even talk about it. We just went to bed. Around 1 a.m., I woke up to a smell I couldn't place. Sharp. Oily. I got up. Dana wasn't in bed. I walked out to the backyard, and there she was, barefoot, just staring. Our outdoor table was ruined. We built that table ourselves, from wood we found at a salvage yard. It was soaked in some kind of oil. Not cooking oil, something heavier. Greasy and dark. The tablecloth was melted. The candles we'd used earlier were a mess of wax and glass. The cushions on the chairs had gone stiff, like they'd been coated in tar. I felt a rage I can't explain. Not hot. Not yelling rage. Cold. Quiet. The kind of rage that burns slow. I went inside and checked the fence cam. We installed it last year after some raccoons got into the garden. It caught motion along the west fence line at 12:46 a.m. I watched the video 3 times. It was Craig. He was calm, almost bored looking. Wore socks but no shoes. Carried a plastic jug in one hand. Climbed over the fence like it was a routine. Walked straight to the table. Poured slowly, methodically, over the top. Then turned around and left. The next morning, I walked over. I didn't even knock this time. Craig was outside watering his dead lawn like it was alive. I said, "We caught you on camera last night." He didn't flinch. I said, "You poured something on our table. That's vandalism." He looked at me and said, in the most even tone I've ever heard, "Your happiness feels aggressive. Like we were the ones picking a fight." We called the cops. An officer showed up later that afternoon. He was younger, maybe late 20s, already looked tired. We gave him the footage. He watched it without saying anything. Then he looked up at me and said, "You're the fourth house on this block to report them in 6 months." That hit me. 4 houses. 6 months. And they were still here. Still doing this. That's when I knew something had to be done. Not just a police report. Not just a confrontation. Real consequences. They started this war. I was going to finish it. I didn't tell Dana everything right away. I needed time to think. I didn't want her getting pulled into something dark. She's kind. She still thinks people like Pamela and Craig can be reasoned with. I used to think that too. I started by talking to the other neighbors. I knocked on doors one by one. Not dramatic. Just honest. We had a situation with Craig and Pamela. Something weird happened. The officer said we're the 4th report in 6 months. Can I ask, what happened to you? The stories came fast. The woman 2 doors down, Sarah, said her daughter's bike vanished off their porch. Found it a week later smashed behind Craig's shed. She had a picture of it. Bent frame. Torn seat. An older man across the street, Joe, told me Pamela screamed at him for polluting her peace. Because he installed a wind chime on his porch. A small one. She left a note on his car the next day. Nails make music too. 3 days later he got a flat. 2 nails in his back tire. Then there was the couple next door on the other side, Marcus and Tia. They got married last fall. Had a few friends over for an outdoor dinner. Nothing crazy. 2 days later they found dead roses, like dozens, stuffed into their mailbox. When they asked Craig about it, he told them, "Grief has a sound, and you're too loud." Every single one of them had called the police. Every single one got nowhere. I asked them all the same question. "If I do something about this, quietly, will you back me up?" Every single one said yes. So I made a plan. First, I started digging into Craig's background. It wasn't hard. People put too much online. Turns out he used to be in IT tech. Got laid off 3 years ago. Around the same time they moved in. No LinkedIn updates since. No Facebook posts, just one shared account with Pamela. They used to live in Medford. I called a friend down there who works in property management. 2 weeks later he called me back. That couple? Yeah. They trashed the rental. Left it covered in glue and cat litter. Owner couldn't sue, they had already filed for bankruptcy and vanished. I had enough. So I bought a drone. Not a toy one. A real one. With infrared. Night vision. Silent. Every night for 2 weeks, I flew it over their property. I recorded everything. Pamela yelling at the wind. Craig throwing rocks at crows. At one point he smashed his own bird feeder, then blamed it on the kids next door. I got it all. Then I built a burner website. Salem Neighbor Watch, Pamela and Craig files. I uploaded everything. Videos. Audio. Screenshots from FenceCam. Testimonies. Even the police report numbers. Then I printed out little business cards with a QR code linking to the site. Left them in coffee shops. Grocery stores. On windshields. Taped one to the stop sign on our corner. It took off in 2 days. People started commenting. Sharing stories. Not just our street, blocks away. Neighbors we'd never met. One woman claimed Craig spat on her kid's chalk drawing on the sidewalk and told him, "Art is a lie." I didn't post under my name. I stayed quiet. Just watched it grow. And then it happened. Craig knocked on my door. Dana answered before I could stop her. He said, calm as ever, "I know what you're doing." She looked confused. "What?" He didn't answer. Just stared at her. Then looked past her at me. "Funny thing about exposing people," he said. "You forget you live in a house made of windows." Then he walked away. That night, I stayed up with a baseball bat and a kitchen chair by the front window. He didn't come back. But something else did. Around 3 a.m. I heard the sound. Not footsteps. Not knocking. Dripping. I went out the back door with a flashlight and found it fast, dark lines on the patio. Oily, sticky. Same as before. But this time, it wasn't just the table. It was on the sliding door. On the chairs. Even on the grill cover. They were marking us. Like a warning. I checked the cameras. Nothing. That was impossible. Then I remembered, Craig was in IT. He knew about systems. I ran inside, yanked the memory card from the camera, checked it on my laptop. Nothing from 1:48 to 3:02 a.m. Blank. He'd blacked it out somehow. I sat in the dark living room, Dana asleep upstairs, my hands shaking. I wasn't scared. Not exactly. It was something else, like I was inside a game I didn't know the rules to anymore. The next morning, Dana saw the mess. She cried. That broke something in me. I'd held it together until then. But seeing her cry over this, the place we built, our home, turned into a war zone, it pushed me into a place I'd been trying to avoid. I stopped being careful. That day, I drove to Craig and Pamela's place in Medford. I found the old landlord. Paid him $500 cash just to let me look through the lease agreement and complaints. And I hit gold. Pamela had filed a restraining order against the neighbor there, claiming he stalked her with joy. It was thrown out, zero evidence, just a bunch of journal entries. Craig accused someone of poisoning their lawn. Cops found fertilizer. Again, nothing. It was a pattern. They moved. Did it again. Moved. Did it again. Then I found their bank info. Public records showed a lien on their home. Craig hadn't worked in years. No income listed. They were 3 months behind on their mortgage. They were circling the drain. That night, I dropped an envelope on every porch on our block. Inside, a link to the burner site, an update on the drone footage, and 1 page summarizing all I'd learned. Their debts. The eviction history. Copies of the restraining orders they filed and lost. No threats. Just facts. The next day, Pamela came outside screaming. She stood in the middle of her lawn, barefoot, hair wild, arms out like a scarecrow, and shouted, "This is a witch hunt!" No one came out. She started naming names. "Sarah, you little spy. Joe, you old fraud. I see you." Still, no one came. It was quiet. Too quiet. The cops came 15 minutes later. I watched them talk to her. She was crying now, panicked, pointing everywhere. I couldn't hear her words, but I saw the desperation. Craig stood in the background, arms crossed, staring straight at my house. When the police left, they didn't arrest anyone. But the next day, something new happened. A black SUV pulled up to their house. Not marked. 2 people got out. Suits. One had a clipboard. Dana watched from the upstairs window. "They're from the bank," she whispered. "Foreclosure. They had 30 days. Pamela didn't scream that day. Craig didn't even come outside. But that wasn't the end. A week later, someone slashed the tires on my truck. No cameras caught it. Then our mail started going missing. Then someone sent a photo of Dana at the grocery store, printed and left in our mailbox. No note. Just her, pushing a cart. That night I stayed up again. But this time, I wasn't waiting. I had a plan. And this time, I wasn't going to play defense. I called in a favor. My cousin Travis lives in Portland. He's a quiet guy, works as a contractor, but used to do security systems. The kind of guy who can wire a camera into a tree without you ever knowing it's there. He owed me from years ago. I helped him out of a bad spot. Didn't ask questions back then. Now it was my turn. He showed up that weekend with a duffel bag and no small talk. We spent all Saturday installing hidden cameras. Not just in the backyard, but across the street, in the alley, even in the birdhouse I mounted on the fence just to bait Craig. Every inch of our property got covered. Then we put one in the mailbox. Just behind the lip. You wouldn't notice unless you were looking inside with a flashlight. Travis also brought something else, a GPS tracker. I didn't ask where he got it. I just handed him Craig's license plate. That Monday, the game changed again. We caught Pamela walking up to Joe's porch with a bag of what looked like raw chicken. She smeared it across his welcome mat like it was some kind of ritual. The footage was clear. Her face. Her hand. The mess. We sent it to Joe. Joe sent it to the police. 2 days later, another patrol car rolled up to their house. That should have been it. But then Craig disappeared. For a full week, no sign of him. No trips in or out. No sightings. GPS showed the car parked at home, untouched. Pamela kept coming out, kept pacing the yard. She started yelling at people who weren't there. Twice, she screamed into the sky. I filmed it all. But Craig, gone. Until Friday. That's when the tracker lit up. He drove at 2:17 a.m. I watched the GPS app on my phone as the little dot moved slowly across town. No highways. Just back roads. He stopped near the edge of the city, by a junkyard. Travis and I drove out there in silence. We didn't go into the lot. We parked nearby, waited in the dark. I had binoculars. I saw Craig unloading something heavy from the back of his car. Not trash. Not junk. It looked like boxes. Several. Each one wrapped in black plastic. He walked into the junkyard through a side gate like he owned it. Then he was gone. We waited 30 minutes. Nothing. Then we left. Quiet. Careful. The next day, I went back alone. Talked to a guy at the yard, gave him $100 to let me poke around. Found the gate. Found the trail Craig made. Followed it to the far end of the lot. What I found made my blood run cold. It wasn't just trash. It was a pile of stuff. Mail. Names I recognized, Joe's, Sarah's, even some of ours. Some of it was burned. Some torn. Scattered like garbage. Underneath, I found a scorched binder. Inside were printed emails. Photos. Copies of social media posts. All of us. He had been tracking the entire neighborhood. I took pictures. When I got home, I didn't talk to Dana right away. I went to my office, locked the door, and printed it all. Every photo. Every detail. Then I called the detective the police had finally assigned to our case. This time, I didn't just report Craig. I handed over a full-blown dossier. But Craig wasn't done either. That night, the power went out in our house. Just ours. The breaker box had been smashed open. I found it the next morning. Wires pulled. Hammer marks. Inside our mailbox? A single piece of paper. No words. Just a photo of our wedding day, printed in black and white. The final line had been crossed. They wanted to ruin our peace. I was about to destroy theirs. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the floor of my office, staring at that wedding photo until the sun came up. The edges were curled like it had been handled too much. The ink smudged on Dana's face. It wasn't just a threat. It was personal now. And I'd had enough. First thing that morning, I sent the photos of the burned binder, the stolen mail, and the wrecked breaker box to the detective. No filters, no long explanations, just time-stamped evidence and a message. They're escalating. We're not safe. That was the push he needed. He called me back an hour later. Said they were opening an official investigation. Not just a noise complaint or property damage. This was now a criminal case, harassment, vandalism, theft, destruction of mail, possibly federal. It felt like a win. For a second. But I knew it wasn't over until they were gone. So I took the final step. I called a friend in local media. Not a reporter. A field producer for a small news channel. I sent him everything. The drone footage. The neighborhood testimonies. The binder. The weird mailbox photo. He called me back the same day and said, "Jesus Christ. Yeah. We'll run it." The story aired that Friday night. Terror on Willow Drive. The neighbors nobody can escape. They ran security cam clips. Blurred faces. Interviews with Sarah and Joe. A segment about Pamela's screaming fits. A shot of Craig carrying that jug of oil across our fence. The phones at City Hall lit up. The next day, Dana and I saw 2 unmarked sedans outside their house. A detective. A fire marshal. Someone from the bank. They were all talking to Pamela. She was pacing in her bathrobe, ranting at the sky. Her voice cracked as she pointed in all directions. I saw Craig come outside, and for the first time, he didn't look calm. He looked cornered. That weekend, the sheriff showed up with an eviction notice. I watched them nail it to the front door. 30 days to vacate. It should have felt good. But it didn't. Because that night, they hit back one last time. Dana and I were asleep when the smoke alarms went off. Not from fire. From something burning in the yard. I ran outside in my boxers and saw it. Our table, the one they ruined weeks ago, had been dragged back from wherever it disappeared to. It was now on our lawn. On fire. Someone had set it up like a sick little dinner scene. 2 candles. A bottle of wine. Flames licking up the legs. Chairs around it. And in one of the chairs was a framed photo of my grandparents. The same one from their anniversary night. I used the hose to put it out. Dana called 911. This time, the cops didn't knock. They went straight over the fence. Craig tried to run. Pamela screamed something about persecution. They were both taken in for questioning. No cuffs, not yet, but the message was clear. By Monday, the moving truck was in their driveway. They didn't even say goodbye. Just packed fast. Left faster. Neighbors came out to watch. Not to help, just to make sure it really happened. Pamela's final words, shouted from the front porch, were, "You'll all be miserable without us." But we weren't. The block has been quiet ever since. Still, I made mistakes. I let it get too far before I fought back. I ignored the early signs. I tried to be polite when I should have set boundaries from day one. And worst of all, I let Dana live in fear longer than she should have. Now, every time a car slows in front of our house, I still tense up. I check the mail twice a day. Our cameras stay on. The drone is still in the shed charged, just in case. Because I learned something from Craig and Pamela: some people don't want peace. They want control. And when they can't have it, they try to burn everything around them. But not this house. Not anymore. We took our peace back. And I hope wherever they went next, someone's ready. Because happiness isn't aggressive. But revenge? Sometimes it is.